Hi, this is Lisa Hazard with We're All Psychic, and today we are interviewing Misty, and by we, I mean me. Misty, would you like to say hello?
Hello. I hope everybody is doing well today.
I do too, but somebody's probably having a crappy day. Maybe we can cheer them up.
Maybe. Let's try.
So, Misty, do you think we're all psychic?
I do. I think we all have psychic abilities. I think that some of us kind of bury it, and some of us are actually born with the ability that's, it's enlightened in them already. I believe people have different psychic abilities, and sometimes I don't even know, that's a psychic ability. It could be something like a voice popping in your head saying, this person's fixing to call you, and they call you, and you're like, hey, that was weird. Well, guess what? I think that has to do with some psychic abilities, don't you, Lisa?
Yes, I do, and that is a great example. That happens to everybody.
It does. It does.
That hasn't happened to, and they don't, question it too much. At the time, they're freaking out.
I know. I know. And even I think the perfect example too is I know you've heard of all the stories about something bad's fixing to happen, and then there's that voice in your head that says, "Don't do it. You shouldn't do it." And they stop and they listen to that voice, and whether they do it or not do it, usually, if they ended up ignoring that voice, they get into a lot of trouble. And I think that is a big part of everybody, having that psychic ability, is because, that thought, that comes upon you and things like that happen. And that is definitely, your spirit guides or, whoever telling you, hey, don't do that. You're going to get in trouble.
So you said spirit guides. We haven't talked about spirit guides yet on the show.
Okay.
So what do you think of when you say spirit guides?
Well, spirit guides, at first when I was younger, I used to think of them as angels. That was the picture in my head. And I guess that's how I was raised, in a Lutheran church. But as I get older and a little bit wiser and study a little bit more, I really think that spirit guides are still kind of like angels, but they're around us, to help us on our journey and help us, get to where we need to be, and also, just kind of guide us, where we need to be. And the spirit guides, I think they could be, somebody that passed on, a loved one, could be somebody that we have no idea who they are, in this lifetime at least. It could be anybody.
Have you ever had any kind of interaction with a spirit guide of your own?
No. I'm working on that though.
Okay.
Actually, I'll take that back. I have never seen my spirit guides, but I have talked to them before, and they have guided me through dreams. So yeah, that would be an interaction with my spirit guide. You see, I'm learning, and I still am, trying to figure out my abilities. And, when you say talk about spirit guides, well, I asked the spirit guides to help me in my dream, and they did. So that would be an interaction.
That would be an interaction with
yes.
spirit guides. So one of the things when we've been talking lately about this interview and getting to know each other better, I was curious about your experiences with empathy mostly, because you have definitely, in my professional opinion, a lot of empathy, and you deal with it all the time. You're one of those people who can just everywhere. You're bombarded with emotion, it seems like.
Yes.
You feel all of them. Mm-hmm. And I would like to hear about that. What is that like for you?
Well, when I was younger, I definitely could feel, other people's thoughts around me. And, a lot of times it would drag me down, if somebody was upset, it was almost like I was in their shoes at that moment. And there was nothing I could do to help this person, but my gosh, I felt, just how they felt, as if I was in their place. And, the older I got, I think the more depressed I got because of it, because, here I am experiencing all this negative stuff from people, and I always want to help people, and, hearing about all these negative things and then, taking it all in, that affects a person. And, and that did cause me, and still does, to have a lot of depression issues. And, I grew out of a lot of it as I got older. And I think I tried to block a lot of it out, but it's not an easy thing to do.
No, it's not.
And the older I get, the more I would like to learn about it and how to block that kind of stuff. And, I was talking to you the other day about how, a lot of people that have that ability, they think that they're crazy and that they need to be on medicine. And, I have to be on medicine just to calm me down because I'm so emotional. I would just break down in tears, for the silliest things, because I was absorbing all of this emotional energy. And, it has helped me get through it. But, it's one of those things where I think a lot of people, have to be on medicine to deal with these kind of things too. And they don't even understand what's going on. They just think, oh, I'm weird. I'm strange. I need help,
Distress. It's not just
yes.
weird and strange. I mean, it's
yes.
a horrible feeling to be depressed and be taking
yes.
so much negative just from all around. And what was the first thing that came to you that make you think that this was an empathy kind of thing, an empath situation? How old were you? Was there a moment when you read about it or heard about it and you're like, wait a second?
Well, it was definitely later on in life. I was probably in my late 20s, maybe even early 30s, because a lot of the things that have happened to me, especially when I was younger, I blocked. And once you block something, it's kind of hard to unblock it.
Yeah.
And so now I'm at the point where I would love to unblock it safely without the negative parts of it, and do it in a positive way.
There are all kinds of ways you can do that, and maybe in future episodes we'll explore those.
Yes.
But one way, just for you for now and for the listeners, is to imagine that well, there's a few steps to this, but the first thing you want to be able to do is to generate inside yourself. There's a way to keep it going, but we'll get into that. Generate inside yourself a feeling without other people's feelings. A lot of empaths may be like this. I was like this. When I realized something like that was going on, and yes, I did the medicine and I still do, but...
Me too, yeah.
Yeah, but when I realized something more than just psychological issues or psychiatric issues was going on, I started techniques like that I read about or just tried. And the one that really worked was to generate inside myself and like a feeling of me, who I am, like an essence of who I am, and not listen to the negative things I hear about myself that I told myself or anything like that. And just try to project that out.
Like a bubble?
You could, a lot of people do a bubble or a shield around them, an egg.
Mm-hmm.
Or what I do is I try to push out like good feelings, and it keeps the bad ones from coming in. So, but first I have to build it up inside of me. Now, when I was younger and figuring this out, the weird thing was that I didn't really have any emotions of my own. All my emotions were from other people. You know what I'm talking about?
And once you realize that, you're like, wow, who am I?
Yeah. I was like, well, there's nothing I dead inside?
Yes, exactly. You said it perfect. I couldn't have said it any other way. I
didn't understand. I'd just been swallowed up by everybody else's.
Yes.
And I do believe some people, maybe, I think everybody's an empath.
Yeah.
And of course, that's why I'm doing this podcast. But I do believe that some people, when they're younger, either they do block it out or they are told to.
Yes.
you know,
Yes.
talk to. You know,
That's
you don't talk
definitely
about that.
true.
Or, now you're too old for imaginary friends, stuff like that, you know.
Oh, isn't that the truth?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's when it starts, when you're young.
Yeah. And you're kind of like, as you start talking, you're talking about, you have heard the stories about the babies talking about their past lives.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've seen it. Yeah, a friend of mine went through it.
Oh, wow.
It was crazy.
That must have been nuts.
I mean, this girl, she could tell you, I think she was maybe she was probably 3. She was able to say complete sentences and make sense of things, but she would tell you about drowning in water over a bridge. Wow. And she gave the exact name of the bridge. Wow. And we looked it up, and it was an actual bridge in another country somewhere. And I mean, it's crazy. But the funny thing about it is she would tell us all kind of things. And I remember her saying, you know, her grandmother was my best friend, and she would always say, Nana, you know, I don't want anything to ever happen to you. I don't want you to leave me. She would always say that. And I thought that was kind of strange, you know, and I didn't know if that was from past life. But the older she got, the more she just quit talking about it, you know. Yeah. And the strange thing is, I look back now, and probably about the child is probably about 5 now, but her grandmother passed away like 2 years ago. Oh. So that makes me think, you know, that she knew that she wasn't going to have that much time with her grandmother. And then she was, you know, reaching out, you know, expressing that, you know, maybe she knew it was going to happen, and we didn't obviously know what it meant. Right. You know, so I have seen cases of it. And
I bet you had an idea, didn't you? The child.
It scared me.
Scared you?
I mean, when she said that, it scared me, and obviously it stuck with me because you know, these years later, I look back and I think I remember her saying that. Like I just remember her saying those words, and I remember, you know, the grandmother would just look at her and laugh and tell her, "I'm not going anywhere, honey. It's okay." You know, that's what we all do, you know. But, yeah, I believe that, you know, kids like that, they can definitely, you know, remember past lives. So, you know,
something you said stood out to me. Afraid. That's come up a few times.
Oh, yeah.
Very afraid.
Yeah.
Why do we, I was very afraid when I started finding out about what all this stuff is, the psychic stuff.
Of course. Yeah.
Whatever, you know, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
So, it did scare me. So, but I couldn't put my finger on why. It was more because I didn't understand it, I think. How about you?
Oh, yeah. I didn't understand it, or I thought that maybe I was going crazy, or, you know, we're all, or not all of us, but most of us, you know, are raised in some kind of religion, you know, that tells us that that's not, you know, that's witchcraft, or, you know, that's not normal. You don't do those kind of things. And so you begin to think, well, you know, that must be evil and I must be afraid of it.
Yeah.
You know?
Do you think it's possible that these kinds of abilities, techniques, all the kinds of psychic stuff, do you think maybe maybe we've talked about this, but maybe there was a time in ancient civilizations where this was just part of the experience, of these senses like smell and empathy were one, and, you know, just all regular senses that people have, and they had words for them. Like we have empath. That's like one word we have. Yes. One big word. It's in the dictionary.
There's so many meanings to it.
Yeah. And it seems like, you know, somewhere back in man's time, these things had to have been addressed as regular senses to me.
I think so.
It's just like, it's like buried knowledge, or a lot of people use it now as it's become very popular.
Yeah, nowadays it is.
It's great.
Yeah. But I mean, you know, back in the time that we were raised, it wasn't like that.
No, not at all.
I mean, you know, if you were to go to a psychic, that would be like, you know, well, you're dealing with the devil there, or witchcraft, or, you know.
Yeah.
Thank God that my mother did not raise me like that. My mother was very open about this kind of stuff, and she had experienced things. And also, I've also wondered if, like, a lot of these stronger psychic abilities run in families.
Yeah, but they
like, do you have anybody in your family that has any abilities,
I think
strong
they
abilities?
all do, but
I know they all do, but I'm talking about like
can
strong.
always tell when I'm lying.
Yeah, yeah.
But my aunt's Lillian had what she called a witch sense.
Yeah.
And she could tell like things. Like one time she woke up in the middle of the night and she just knew where my cousin Jane was. She's about 17. She woke up and knew my cousin was somewhere by these railroad tracks, and she right where they were, and she was very upset. I think something had happened where she'd gotten a fight with her boyfriend and he just dropped her there or something like that. My Aunt Lil woke up, knew where she was, got in the car, went and got her.
Wow.
Never been to that railroad track.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is so awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. And she has that, she had that all, all her life, and she probably still does.
I'm sure she still does.
Yeah.
I remember there was somebody, I think it was my, it must have been my grandmother's, one of my grandmother's brother. He was a really, really big into, energies, and he was psychic, and he was really good.
Yeah.
Like my whole family would talk about how good he was.
Was he a professional, or would he just?
Well, no, he would just, tell us things that were going to happen, just in the family, and
how
it would
did he
happen.
handle it? I mean, how would he ever talk about it, and how it was for him? And was he confident? How do you think he got that way?
I think that everybody in my family is so open to it that it was just natural.
So it's kind of a cultural almost.
Kind of. Like we're all a cult.
Yeah.
We're a family cult.
Yes. I guess every family is a cult of personality. But,
you know what I'm trying to say.
Yes.
I think...
Yeah, you're raised... So if we are all raised to think that these experiences aren't weird or scary or strange, maybe things would be different for a lot of people.
I know.
Yeah, like that
I know.
child growing up, maybe if they would have remembered everything.
Because I think that, like, when we're born, we remember, a lot in our little bitty brains,
I think so too.
And that I think that they still see spirits.
I think so
I think
too.
their spirit guides are right there.
You can watch them.
Yes. They go off into another little world, And as they even start talking, like we said earlier, they'll say, oh, well, there's, there's grandpa over there. And, it happened to my kids a couple times. My oldest one would talk about a man in my grandmother's house. She would go outside and play. My grandfather had passed, and she must have been maybe 5 or 6, and she had never met my grandfather. And she said, Mom, there's a man in the swing, swinging over there. And we're looking over there like, no, there's not. And we're all curious because it's my family. And we were like, well, what does he look like? And she said, well, he's got this distinctive hat on, and he looks like this and this. She was describing my grandfather. Oh. So she was seeing him, at that age. Yeah. When, most parents will be like, oh, yeah, right. Okay. You see somebody. Okay. Yeah. There's nobody there. But if you actually stop and ask the child, they might actually surprise you of what they know.
Would, yes.
And that's when I think that you say that we're all psychic. Well, I think we all start out that way. Yeah, and I think so that we, either we block it or we just don't understand it, or, there's many things that can get in the way of it,
It's also very cultural, speaking of culturals again.
Yeah.
Our global culture. I mean, there's places that it's very much accepted that, we've talked about this, like schizophrenia is in some cultures, schizophrenics become shaman. They're not considered damage. They're considered.
I agree.
The older shaman in the tribe will find that shaman when they're starting to go through a sickness or something, and teach them after they make it through whatever sickness.
Gosh, yes.
And
wouldn't that be cool to do that here
for some cultures? But there's small places all like probably don't have internet to tell us about it.
Well, it's like here, if you've got a problem, here's a medication for it. Yeah. Exactly. Here in the United States, that's just how it is. But in other cultures, they don't have access to that, and they have different beliefs.
Right. And, a medicine man or woman would, in some cases, they would go into a trance and they go heal in a spiritual way, some kind of ailment that's on the physical plane.
Yes.
And I've read about that.
Yes.
And I think that's just fascinating. And apparently it's worked for as long as people have been around. It's just shaman was the first, as far as we know, to be a spiritual leader in known human history.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and not only that, but they used a lot of the natural herbs,
right?
And all that, for medicine. And I also think, when we're talking about psychic and how we all are psychic in certain ways, and some people, have a stronger part of it than others. But, what I have learned, especially in the last few months, is it's a lot of work. I mean, once you've closed that door, it's not easy to reopen it. And it's a lot of meditating to try to get things opened up. And, it's work. And
there's always peyote.
Yes. And that is definitely the way to go.
That is always the way to go.
You can open that mind up and go as far as you want. Maybe it'll never
close again.
Yes, if you're lucky. I wonder how many dimensions you would have to go through.
Oh, you're cracking me up so much. Well, Misty, I think this has been a fabulous interview, and I hope the first of many.
Me too, because I'm not ready for this to end.
I know I'm not either, but maybe we should just keep it short and sweet for now. And
okay.
Maybe we'll do it again next week.
I think that we should.
Possibly we could.
All right.
It's on.
High five to us.
High five.
Because we're all psychic.
I like her. Do you like her? I like her. I guess I don't have to ask her yet again if she thinks we're all psychic, because I think we know her answer. She did say it once or twice. And thank you again.
Thank you.
And this is Lisa Hazard and Misty with We're All Psychic. And we'll see you again later.